What were your initial thoughts of just all of this kind of coming down the way it did?
Well, when Tim Bontemps and Brian Windhorst first reported on that story, you wondered, is this some positioning that's being done by the Thunder to see if there's other deals out there? But sure enough, where there was smoke, there was fire. And I'm just happy that a guy like Chris Paul, who's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, the guy who, in my opinion, is on the short list of people responsible for the bubble actually happening, for his leadership for the NBPA, he finds himself in another position where he can be competitive night in, night out, and have a chance to play for something and not have his skills go to waste. Now, do I think Phoenix is all of a sudden a top 4 contender in the West? Absolutely not. Do I think even they're locked to make the playoffs? No. But
really?
But I think him combined with that talent that went 8-0 in the bubble will have a chance to be a team that can win every game they play, and that's what you want for a competitor like Chris Paul.
So where do you see them potentially? Like, what is their ceiling, I guess?
I mean, ceiling, would I be like bowled over shocked if they ended up with the 5th seed? No.
Right.
But I think that's kind of where it is. I think they'll be competing with teams like Memphis and New Orleans and maybe even Portland for that bottom of the West playoff picture. Now with this play-in tournament, maybe they get it in the playoffs by being the 10th seed and having a play-in game.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, when you look at that particular squad, as you mentioned, they have a lot of similarities to OKC. Young roster. These guys, one would assume James Jones and Robert Sarver and everyone involved with the Suns wants them to take that next step. Do you believe, though, that the players that they have in place are capable of elevating their games as well?
I do. I think, some of their best players from last season are continuing to ascend. So Devin Booker, Bridges, these are guys who are showing different levels to their game that are still being unlocked. And I think having someone like Chris Paul, who not only will put them in positions to succeed, but teach them things off the court about body maintenance and about how to manage your finances, everything like that, can only make them on a better track to be professionals in the long run.
On the flip side, OKC, it feels like they've got a treasure trove here of assets to work with over the next several years. Sam Presti's put himself in a pretty good position to rebuild.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, as a GM, all you want to do is give yourself optionality, flexibility, and that's what he's done there. I mean, we're talking about, 17? Draft picks they have in their coffers right now? I mean, that's an absurd amount, but look at what you saw. The last GM, I think, to do this so successfully was Danny Ainge, and then when he started using those assets, he's built a team that's made the Eastern Conference Finals 3 of the last 4 years. That's what, obviously, the sustainable success that Presti is hoping for.
All right, obviously, the big news of the day is Chris Paul going to Phoenix, the man who broke the story, the NBA insider here at ESPN, senior NBA insider. Dropping a Woj bomb today. Woj joins us here on The Jump. So, Woj, can you give us the details of this particular deal, and how did this all come about?
Well, Sam Presti in Oklahoma City, as you guys were talking about, and gathering up all these assets, he's worked with certainly now Chris Paul, but Paul George, Russell Westbrook, Carmelo Anthony, in shepherding them in deals that brought back picks, and he's done it again with Phoenix. Getting that 2022 first-round pick. But, Chris Paul had a significant voice in this, wanted to go to Phoenix. Listen, it's at his position, his age, the money. Listen, there was a limited group of teams for him, but Phoenix, it's a perfect fit. Devin Booker very much wanted Chris Paul there, and now you take his leadership with DeAndre Ayton, with Booker, and now you put Chris Paul there with Monty Williams, who he played for previously in New Orleans. And this is a kind of leadership structure you haven't seen in Phoenix under Robert Sarver. I'm not sure, maybe ever in his tenure there. And now you've got a team in the Western Conference with Chris Paul that can compete to get into the playoffs. And for him, this was a year well spent in Oklahoma City. And I think kind of rebooting his career, reminding everybody of how he can impact winning. He did that with the Thunder, with their young players, and now they'll ask him to do the same in Phoenix.
Woj, when it comes to OKC, what else can we expect from them here moving forward, as they clearly are in a rebuild now?
Yeah, you're starting to see them off-put assets. Dennis Schroeder goes to the Lakers, obviously Chris Paul to Phoenix. Steven Adams is certainly a player. Danilo Gallinari, who's a free agent, but you may very well see him go in a sign and trade elsewhere, and that's an opportunity for the Thunder to get even more assets. He's a player who could sign into cap space somewhere, or a team without space, you do the sign and trade. They've shown they can work with players and agents and get those things done, and that opens up more doors for Oklahoma City to keep gathering. In the next 5 drafts. They have two first-round picks on Wednesday night, and then as you go through the next 4 or 5 years, they have no fewer than 3 first-round picks in each of those seasons. And listen, they may not use all those picks, but what those picks give you are a chance to go in and chase big players in trades, to move up in the draft and have multiple picks. That might get you high into a lottery in a year when there's a particular player you're chasing. So Oklahoma City is in a position here, to really replenish and reboot their franchise. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander now takes over, as their point guard with Schroeder gone, with Chris Paul gone, and that's a player they plan to build around with the Thunder. You mentioned Dennis Schroeder going to the Lakers now, obviously. Why did the Lakers target Schroeder? Well, first of all, the threat of losing Rajon Rondo in free agency. Avery Bradley could opt out, but Dennis Schroeder is this is a superior player to those they had last year. This is a player who very much was in demand on the trade market. Milwaukee was very interested in landing Dennis Schroeder. It was certainly a blow to the Bucks that he goes to the defending champion Lakers. But this is a player who can play, defend multiple spots. He can, become a much better spot-up shooter. And listen, for the Lakers to go and get Danny Green and a first-round pick to get Schroeder in, he's got a year left on his deal. They're in position to be able to re-sign him in free agency if all goes well. That was a big pickup for Rob Pelinka. Well, before we let you go, we got to ask you about James Harden. You reported that the Brooklyn Nets are atop Harden's list of preferred destinations if he were to get dealt. Have talks escalated to the extent that these front offices are really starting to get engaged, or where are we on that? Yeah, Brooklyn and Houston have not really engaged in trade discussions, and I think for the Nets, I think what is the price point? What would the price point be for a James Harden?
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.